The brand new Levo SL coming in at 17.7 kilos versus the Levo Gen 3 coming in at just over 22 kilos. Which is better for you riders? Riders, welcome back to Sam's Bikes, where you know we only talk e-bikes, and today is the Levo SL versus the Levo Gen 3. And every rider out there is different. That's why I've got Martin and Pablo, the virgin e-bikers, who have actually been out, lucky riders, for the last month riding both e-bikes. So in this video, we're going to talk about the pros and cons and which bike they would choose. Obviously, I'll chime in as well. And I think it will be very relaxed and just something that you riders will definitely work out if you're a Levo SL rider or a Levo Gen 3 rider. And a massive shout out to Schwalbe, the long-term sponsor at Sam's Bikes, and both the test bikes have had the new Tacky tires on them. So, Martin, what do you think of the Tacky?
I was fairly impressed. I'm usually a Magic Mary rider. It was the first time trying these new tires out, and I really liked them. I think it's more of a quick racing tire. It's a little bit thinner, so it's, I think, much faster, and I think all around more precise.
What about you, Pablo?
I'm also impressed. They are thin. They're 2.3. I used to ride with Maxis as a guys and DHRs,
yeah,
and I didn't know how to expect.
Yeah.
And they work amazing, flawlessly. In loose terrain, they brake so good. You have a lot of control with these tires.
Perfect. And I've done I reckon I've done probably, because I've got them on all my bikes at the moment, long-term reviews coming, probably done like over 1,000, maybe 1,500 Ks now on the Tacky. I'm really liking them. My normal setup is a Magic Mary front and back. I'm gonna say a Tacky is more precise tire, definitely a faster rolling tire, definitely something that you wanna be like more accurate when you're riding. Like say you smash down a downhill with a Magic Mary, it will just kind of grab onto anything, where this, you really need to pick your line. I think you need to be more precise, but definitely faster. I think for an SL, Tacky all day long. On the full power, I reckon I'm gonna go Magic Mary Tacky. I think that's gonna be my setup. Okay, now onto the bikes. So we've got the Levo SL versus the Levo Gen 3. And riders, think of this as we're just at the pub, having a couple of beers and geeking out on e-bikes. So both the bikes in geometry are kind of similar. So we've got a 6-way geometry change in both bikes. We've got 160, 150, they're both mullets. We've got 50 newton meters of torque on the SL and 90 on the Levo Gen 3, and a big 700 watt-hour battery and a 320 watt-hour battery. So first up, the most important part, how does it ride? How does it trail ride? How does it downhill? How does it enduro? Pablo, take it away.
Both bikes are so capable, so versatile. Going uphill, the Levo is the king because it can do everything. You can use trail and go wherever you want. If you put the turbo on, you can climb walls.
Yeah, and we had to calm him down. He was crazy out in the trails. Ex-trial sort of motorbiker, like definitely knows how to, like, by far the best climber out of us. And what do you reckon, like, as far as like when you're going downhill, like the weight of these bikes, how much do you reckon it like affects the riding?
Well, the Levo is more planted, definitely. The Levo is more planted, the weight is noticeable. The SL is lively, is more playful. This is playful and lively too, but there is a difference, the 5 kilo difference.
And this is closer to an analog, probably.
Yeah, much closer.
What do you reckon, Martin?
I think I would agree on that. I think they're similar in geo, but really comes down to what kind of rider you are, and also I think the trails you're riding. I think this bike can be playful too, but the power output you're putting it, the force you're putting into, you have to put more into it. But then when you're climbing, it's a much nicer bike to climb. So I think it depends where you're riding. Where I ride, there's a lot of turns. There's a lot of like different movement in the trails. It's not such a straight line trail. So I think this bike is really nice to ride, but you have to be more careful. It's much lighter. It's more like a trail bike. Where with this one, you can just point it and it's going to be much more planted and much more stable.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've been on this. I've done about 400 Ks on the Levo SL, about 4,000 on the Gen 3. I'm going to say the Levo SL actually reminds me of before I started the channel. Takes me back to the analog days, a long time ago now, I know. And the first couple of weeks, I kind of felt like I wasn't that confident on the bike because it wasn't as planted. So the weight is obviously a lot lighter, and the weight, most importantly, the weight of where that weight is, it's right in the bottom bracket on the Levo. So it's actually easier, I think, to ride the Levo Gen 3 fast.
Yeah.
And you need to be more skilled, I think, or probably that just comes down to me, just like, you know, being so long on the heavier bike. Maybe I lost a little bit of my skills. Let's talk about jumping. What do you think how these bikes jumped?
Both jumps, perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe the Levo could be the platform, the suspension is less progressive. So in the hack to flats, there's more to bottom out.
Yep.
This one, I've never bottom out.
Yeah.
And it's pleasure when you're riding.
Definitely. What about you, Martin?
I would agree with that. I would also add that this bike, I feel getting it off the ground is more difficult. You have to put more into it, but then it's much more stable because of the weight. So for bigger jumps, maybe bike park, I'll feel better on this bike. But then with this one, you're jumping around all day on the trail. So it's much easier to get it off the ground.
Yeah, agreed. I've taken both bikes to La Panilla Bike Park. I've done the black run on this one. I chickened out on this one. I just didn't feel it. I don't know, like I was feeling scared because they're big jumps and I'm so used to the weight. But again, this bike, I did do a lot of the jumps at La Panilla and I was overshooting stuff because it just goes. Like, it's so much lighter, it jumps really well and it pops off anything. Also gonna say, if you get it wrong, hold on. Because like the bike, how it compresses, like you will go through the suspension. Doesn't matter how ramped up, how many tokens you've got, you're gonna go through the suspension and your knees and your back is gonna feel it. So I would say with more time, getting to know the weight better, this is a way better jumper. Okay, so now let's talk about the overall feel, power and range of both systems. And riders, we do ride in some pretty gnarly steep places. So I'm gonna start off and just say, I'm definitely a fan of the 90 Newton meters of torque, 100%, but the 50 Newton meters of torque is definitely enough for my style of riding if I wasn't riding with a full powered electric mountain bike group. I don't think my fitness is there. I think Pablo's is. But I also want to say, this bike, if you run out of the battery or if you're riding above the limiter, it is seamless. You do not feel that. Like, you can ride this off and it feels almost like an analog bike, I think, where when you ride this off or you run out of power, it's decoupling. It doesn't decouple as well, but also you're pushing more weight. So when you're going uphill, you can just feel it. So how did you find the range and how did you get on with both motors? What were your thoughts?
First thing I noticed was the noise.
Yep.
This one is so quiet.
Yeah.
So quiet.
Yeah.
Most times you don't hear anything.
Yeah.
Even the little bar. This one is a little bit noisier, but it doesn't bother so much. Power-wise, this one is amazing. This is a motorbike.
Yeah.
You can climb wherever you want. You can get the 25K limit without hesitation, without putting any effort, and has no limits.
Yeah.
It has no limits. This one, for me, it is enough. I can go wherever, even with people with this kind of bikes. I can reach the 20 to 25, put in some effort.
Yep. Going
uphill, maybe not in a single track, very difficult.
Yeah.
But mainly I can do it.
What about you, mate? How'd you get on?
I get on well with both bikes. I do have to say I'm more onto Sam's side, a little bit less fit. I like pedaling much less, and this was the best for me. I think this is more like we're saying an analog bike. It can get you places, but this will get you there faster and with less effort, so that's better for me. Also, I think what you're saying, it has absolutely no drag, so if you're pedaling this like off or also beyond that 25K limiter, it really feels like an analog bike. You really don't feel anything in your bottom bracket or in your pedaling. So I think that's also a very nice thing. And it also comes down to who you're riding with. most of my friends ride normal bikes, or maybe a friend has an SL bike. This is going to be better for me. But if I'm riding on my own, I'm definitely taking the full power.
Good, good. I'm going to talk a little bit about like what I thought the natural feeling of the motors are. So like, you know, you're both analog riders. I think for me, this motor, not the power, but how the pedal stroke feels. Like it feels like there's some type of resistance or support against the cranks, where it makes you feel like you're pedaling and actually gives you like a bit more support, and it does feel more natural to me. And I'm not going to say better than the Levo Gen 3, just different. Yeah. If you want the really natural pedal stroke,
for sure,
then you can go for this. But this is very natural, but you can do tuning in mission control to make it feel more natural. But this is more mechanical feeling, where this is more a natural feeling. Yeah. So you definitely notice the Levo Gen 3 has a more burly suspension setup. Got 38s, got an X2, and then the Levo SL has 36s and a float X. Now for me, I didn't feel really much difference between that. I think the Levo Gen 3 does need those 38s at the front, even when they're 160, because it's a heavier bike. And when you're blowing through rock gardens, you don't get that fork flex because of the weight behind the bike. But this bike doesn't have that much weight, so you don't need it. I'm gonna say the kinematics is better on this bike. Ramps up at the end. When you're going through the chatter, when you're going through like the small bump, it's great. But then when you do a big drop, you feel like your body's gonna get slammed, but you don't. How did you guys find like the comparison of the suspension platform?
Yeah, the finally is, I think the same as you. If you want this bike to be popular, you need to put motor in the rear shock, then it's less pleasure. While this one, you can use like 25, 30 sag.
Yep.
And it's popular enough, but at the same time is pleasure.
It's amazing kinematics.
Yeah.
How about you, Martin?
I really like both. I think it's true what you're saying, that they really matched up the suspension build for each bike and what it needed. Not only thinking about the weight, it's thinking about how it's going to be ridden and for who it is. And I really enjoyed how progressive, as you were saying, this is, because I like hugging the flat, you know, doing maybe some jumps I shouldn't be doing. And this really felt more bottomless for how much travel it has compared to other bikes I've ridden. So I really enjoyed that.
Yep. And let's talk a little bit about like, so this bike is a bit more customizable. So we can go a 29er here. It also has a really short chainstay of 432, and where the Levo only is a mullet. Is something, would you like to try it as a 29er? Is it something that you think would be interesting? Pablo, what do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely, yes. Yes, my current bike is both 29er. It's pretty similar to this one, like geo-wise. And I would like to try it because I'm...
Did you find this bike nervous at all?
No,
or
not
the back end stepping out a little bit?
No, not at all.
No?
No. I would like to try, but I think it's working good enough.
Yeah. How about you, Martin?
I really think I like that option to have the 29 or 27, because I ride a lot of bike park, and then I ride a lot of steep trails that are really tight. So I think the Mullet would be much better there. But then if I go to a faster track with more rocks, I want to have more rollover speed. Yep. I can just slap the 29 on, and it's going to be really playful too.
Yeah, I definitely think like in 2023-24, like these are high-end bikes. I think the end user does want it. Even if they're not going to use it, they want it.
They want it.
Now, if Specialized came to us and said, okay, Pablo, what would you change, if anything, about the Levo Gen 3? Like if let's say they're doing the Gen 4, how would you make it different?
Maybe the ground clearance.
Okay.
Maybe the ground clearance is a bit low.
Yeah.
I tend to take the back of the...
We were in the low chip as well. You're in the low stack height, so maybe that could
maybe
change it.
Maybe change.
Yeah.
But when you're changing the flip chip, it's going to be different.
Yeah. You change the clearance on that. What about you? What would you change on this, if anything?
It's a hard thing to say. I really liked it. Maybe the Geo make it a little bit longer for the chainstay. I like a little bit longer bike in the front, so maybe a little bit there, but maybe that's the only thing I would change. I like the bike a lot.
Yeah. I reckon that for me, if I was going to change something in the Levo Gen 3, I'd go 170, 160. Like, I just like, it already feels like an enduro bike. Like, I think I'd just go a little bit. I wouldn't go a 29er. I definitely love the geo. I think I just go up a little bit. And with this, I would like to see it come with a 29er in one of the builds, because like they've got, I think there's 5 models out at the moment. I'd like to see like one model, maybe like a mid-spec model, because if you buy this bike, then you're gonna have to, if you wanna put a 29er, then you're gonna have to put another wheel on it. I'd like to see that because I found this bike more nervous than the Gen 3. I just found it a little bit more like the back wheel was stepping out and I had to really weight the back more, and just really like my body position was like really important where my ass was like when I was riding in steep. I just think that might be, and probably more power.
A little more juice.
A little bit more power. What's the best looking bike? Which one makes you want to ride it?
Straight away, this one. Just the aesthetics, the color for me is the best color I've ever seen.
Have you ever seen like it looks like polished aluminium?
It's like polished alloy with like chrome carbon. It's amazing.
Carbon.
It's the best looking bike probably I've ever seen.
Yeah. And what about you?
Yeah, just the same. Just the same. It's the best looking bike I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, and it's not like super obvious. It's an e-bike. Like it's not that clear. It's an e-bike. Now, let's talk as the virgin e-bikers. What sort of price point do you think is acceptable? What would you be looking at spending for an e-bike? And would you be going carbon? Like, is it worth like getting all the wireless shifting? Is it worth it for you? Do you think, like, how much would you spend? And what out of the parts would you think as the most important part of the bike?
Well,
big question.
Realistically, I would go for around 7,100 or so.
Yep.
This is, I think, is
about 7,000.
Yeah, 7,000.
Yeah.
7,000 euro. Carbon is nice in this bike because of the weight.
Yep.
I think it's important. And all about the specs. Well, I don't think it's a must to have a wireless remote. It's so nice. If I could afford it, I would do it, but I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Because the cable ones are pretty amazing too.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe I think with around 7,000 with an spec similar, but
yeah. What about you, Martin?
That's a tough question, man. We've been trying the Rolls Royce, the best of the best. So coming down back to planet Earth and figuring out my budget, I think I'll be a little bit less than Pablo, maybe looking at 5, maybe 6 grand top. And I think about the spec, I think wireless is amazing. I think it's the future. I think it's much nicer and much better for e-bike shifting. They have a lot of power output, so I think it's better. But I would stick to what I like to do, which is going down, and I'm going to notice much more suspension than transmission when I'm doing that.
Yeah.
So I would go for much better suspension, definitely carbon if I can afford it, and maybe upgrade the alloy wheels to carbon, but definitely better suspension and carbon frame for me.
Yeah. For me, obviously, I'm lucky and I get to ride the Rolls Royces. But if I was sort of, checking in and spending my own money, I reckon like I would probably go like a mid-tier buy. Like I would try and maybe save a little bit more money and get into the mid-tier than go for the entry. Because the entry, really you're getting entry-level suspension and entry-level brakes. The mid-tier, you're normally getting similar suspension and similar brakes to the top. It's not like you're getting like the mid-tier, which like normally like a Fox 38 or a Fox 36, you got factory or you got like the next one down, but it's actually got very similar internals. So you're gonna get the most out of that mid-tier, I think. And another thing, now we're talking about wireless shifting. What did you notice the difference between the new all singing, all dancing Sram and the older Sram wireless? Did you notice much in the power of changing? Is that like a noticeable upgrade?
First thing I noticed was the ergonomics. They are much better. The ergonomics of the new components. While running, there's a difference. The old generations, when you gear up, there's a noise always.
Yep.
And in this one, if you're changing one at a time, you don't feel anything. It's super smooth.
Yep. What about you?
I really enjoyed both, but it is true that the ergonomics, as Pablo says, it's much nicer. You're paying for a premium product, and you definitely get a premium product with the new gen. I also like this, which I come back to e-bikes. You're shifting under load a lot of the time. You're not maybe being as precise. You're storming up a hill. This one you can change wherever you are, and it's going to get crispy switching. So I really like that too.
Yeah. Well, I had like the Levo Gen 3 and the Levo SL for 2 years, so with the original wireless from Sram, and it scared the shit out of me. I'm gonna be honest, because they're so expensive, and like if you break them, like 1,200 euros. But I hit so many rocks with that, and it's like a printer. It goes and like, and then it just moves out of the way and goes back in. I never broke one, and this one I've had now, I haven't broken it. But what I'm noticing is it's got a bigger platform. It's a bigger system, and I'm hitting this one more than I was hitting this one. Or maybe just it's been unlucky and I seem to have hit it more, but I need to do more testing. And something that I've not always been a fan of is code brakes. You were both running, so you both hadn't ridden Magura or codes. So this has got MT7s and these got the new Ultimas. What did you think of, which is the pick of the brakes for you?
Both are amazing, and both are pretty similar. I like more the new codes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm weird.
Yeah. What about you, Martin?
I really enjoyed both, but I do have to say my new favorite brakes are the MT7s for sure. I come from riding Shimano. I really like that it has a super like big precise bite, but you can get some modulation, some progressivity. These are amazing, but I think they brake a little bit too much for me.
Yeah, well, I had my big crash on these brakes, and I'm gonna say the new codes have a shitload of power. Like, they're really powerful, and they actually feel really good. Like, I haven't been a fan of code brakes ever, but these ones feel really good. I'd say like there's probably more modulation in the Magura MT7s, a little bit more, but these I think have more power.
Bigger bite.
Like, these are like super bitey. Now, $1 million question, which one are we going for? Which one would you pick if you could pick one?
If I had to pick one, I would go with the SL.
And why?
Why? Because it's for the type of riding I used to do. I used to ride alone, and I like to put on a 4 while riding. You can do it with both, but maybe this one is more like an acoustic bike.
Yep.
And I like that a lot, and I like the weight. I like how playful it is. I love it.
Perfect. Martin?
For me, I do have to say this felt more natural, like starting out on it. It's more like my bike. It's even lighter than my bike, which is really nice, and it has a motor. But for me, if I'm switching to an e-bike, I'm just getting the full power. It's just going to get me do more laps in the same amount of time or less, and that's what I'm looking for.
Yep. And now down to the $1 million question. Which one would I pick if I had to? Very, very difficult. I absolutely love the Levo SL. It's such a fun bike. It makes me feel like I'm riding an analog bike again. I'm not going to say it's better than the Levo Gen 3. It's just different. Also going to say, when going downhill, I don't feel this is that much better than the Gen 3 for going downhill. It is. It's more playful. It's more fun. It's just more like energetic and like dynamic to ride. But for where we live and who I ride with, I think I'm going to choose the Gen 3 if I had to pick one. But luckily I don't, because I got both of them. And Legend Riders, thank you so much for your time. Absolute pleasure. And like always, riders, if you have any questions for us, put it in the comments. We'll definitely get back to you. And riders, if you haven't subscribed to Sam's Bikes, please do so. Share it with like-minded people and stay safe out there. We're going to see you next week.